guys the ingredients I'm going to be using to achieve this quick jollof rice in less than 10, let's say 30 minutes, I guess. So I already have my blended tomatoes and pepper, which are already blended. But usually what I do, I have this thing where I always boil my tomato mix. I don't know, it's something I learned from my mom while growing up. I feel it just makes things easier because it just takes out the excess water that you have in the tomatoes. So yeah, so that's a blend of tomatoes, onions, pepper, and the long red pepper. But I'm going to be putting that on the side so you can have a visual of what I blended in there. And then also we're going to be have our diced onions here already, and then we also be needing tomato paste. You don't necessarily have to use this one, but this is the one I tend to use a lot when I'm cooking here. And you also will be needing garlic. You can use fresh garlic if you want, or like I said, this is supposed to be a quick chop version when you're like in a hurry, you just want to quickly eat some jollof rice. So thyme, I have salt, olive oil, some Knorr cubes for seasoning. Really depends on what you use, but this is what my go-to seasoning. And obviously the rice, this just has already been washed. Make sure you wash your rice, it's very important. Make sure you wash that at least 3 to 4 times, just to make sure that you have all that excess whatever preservative washed out, so that way your rice is separate. Because this is very important, because some people are always like, oh, when I cook rice it's not separate. That's the reason, because you're not washing your rice very well. So make sure you wash your rice at least 4 times in and out. And then so today I'm going to be using, like I said, it's quick, so I'm going to be using mackerel fillet and spicy tomato sauce to make the rice today, just so it's not just bland. So yeah, those are pretty much the things that we need. So with no further ado, just get straight into the video. All right, so now to kick off the cooking as fast as possible, so I already put in the tomatoes I told you earlier that was blended and boiled. So I'm going to put that directly into the pot where I'm going to be cooking the jollof rice. So once you have that in there, the next step is to add all your seasoning. So this is what I do. So I'm gonna add a thyme that I want. Next I'm gonna be adding the garlic. I love garlic, guys. Clearly. So once you have that in there, the next step is to add your Knorr seasoning. So I'm just going to pop that in now. Okay, so I have that now, so I'm just going to smash that all in. So now you have all that in, so you just stir. Make sure everything is well mixed. So I'm not going to be putting salt yet, because I'm still going to be adding some more seasoning if needed at the end of this process. So you don't want it to be too salty, so that's enough for me for now. Oh guys, I forgot, although I already had fresh pepper blended into the mix of the tomatoes, but I'm also going to be adding some grounded pepper, because I like my food spicy. So it really depends on what your preference is. So I'm going to pop that in now. So that's nicely mixed. So I'm just gonna be adding the pepper. So add as much as you like, depending on how spicy you like your food. So once you have that in, you just stir again. And once that has nicely mixed up, you just put that back on the heat. So I'll just pop this on, not too high, just about 5. Yeah, that's fine. So just leave that. So now I'm gonna leave that on there to cook. So I'm just gonna leave that for 10 minutes. Okay, so we'll be back in another 10 minutes. All right, with no further delays, I'm just going to go ahead to the next step, which is you just get a separate pan or frying pan, whichever it is that you have, and you add your oil. So that's more than enough oil for me. It's not too much, but yeah, so you add that in there. So once that has heated up to the amount enough and is really hot enough, the next step for you would be to add your onions. So we're just gonna wait a few minutes for that to heat up first. Once that has heated up, you add the onions. So and then so what we're doing basically here is I'm going to be adding the onions, and the next step will be for me to add my tomato paste. So for me, this is a technique I learned from a friend of mine, and also I noticed that someone else did this when she was making hers. I just noticed that you allow the other mix to cook on its own, so that way the spices and everything goes in to the tomatoes, and then this one fries separately. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to mix them up together before adding the rice. I just feel it comes out much better, but then you can still do it the traditional way. It really depends on what you prefer. So I think this is getting hot now. Yep. So pop that in there now. Make sure we have everything. So we're just gonna stir. Fry up, getting a bit brown to see I like it. And the next step will be to add the tomato paste. I don't want it to start getting messy, so I'm just gonna stir that up with the onions. You're just gonna keep stirring until you're sure that everything mixed up well, and then you let that fry. Okay, so we're just gonna let that sit on there until we're sure that the paste has cooked and fried to the right level, so you don't have that sour taste in your food. So we're gonna leave that there for, say, 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so while that's cooking over there, we're just gonna go ahead and check the tomatoes on the other side. Yeah, just gonna stir. So you can see this is a bit thicker than when I initially put it in. And we need to have a bit of a paste. So I'm just gonna stir that for a bit and let that simmer for another few minutes while we wait on the other guy. Alright? Okay, so now this is fried up to the level that you want it. I'm just going to turn down the heat on that side, and then come over here, and then we're going to add everything in here into the big pot. mixture. There. So we have all that in there now, as you can see. So we're just going to let that sit and cook and let the oil boil out. Okay, so guys, as you can see, we have achieved a nice red beautiful paste after adding that mixture. So since I'm going to be using mackerel, like I told you earlier, for this particular one I'm making, it can be anything that you want, just to make sure that I don't want the food to be boring. There's nothing inside, so I'm just gonna pop that in there. I'm only using 3 of that. It really depends on how much you're making. Not making that much. It's supposed to be a one-day thing, but it's looking like it's more than that. Oh well. So I'm just gonna stir that in there and allow that to cook. I'm just gonna give that another, say, 4 to 5 minutes. Okay guys, so we have allowed that to sit for a few minutes, all stirred in. So now it's time to add your rice. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. And stir. Usually advise that you do this off the heat, just to avoid any burns when the rice has to start cooking. So I'm just gonna stir that until everything has mixed up together completely. So guys, I have that all stirred up together. So I would say now this is the most critical part. For me personally, I do not like having to come back and go back in regards to the rice. So based on the amount of rice, you should know how much water you need to add, so that way is enough. But I'll advise that you rather have, is advisable rather, for you to have less water than having over, so you don't want your rice to be too soft and soggy when it's boiled. So I'd rather you put just enough that you think can boil it. If you come back and check it while it's boiling and you think, oh, it's not soft enough, you can add water that you think will be enough to get it to where it needs to be than having over. Okay, so we're just going to quickly pop the water in. So I'm just gonna do that, and then you stir again, just to make sure the water is spread out evenly in there for you. Okay, so yep, so that's that. Oh, then yeah, one thing you should have actually checked if it's has enough salt, enough pepper to your taste. If you think it doesn't, you can still add it at this point. Okay, so for me, I think it's a little bit okay. I'm just gonna add a bit of pepper and salt. Okay, so yeah, I have now added the extra pepper and salt. So I have the heat turned up to 6, so you don't want it to be too boil too fast and boil too slow at the same time. So the next step for me would be to cover up the pot with a foil. Okay, so I'm just going to show you now. So you just cut up enough that you think will be needed. So I'm just going to cover this up here now. Then I'm going to cover up the pot. So once that has been covered, then the excess one, you bring that over and just wrap it around the cover, so that way no steam or anything comes out of the pot. So that way we can achieve that smoky, patty Nigerian jollof rice vibe. But this is just for while it's cooking. I'm still going to take this off at some point when the rice is almost ready and stuff the another foil directly on top of the rice and cover it up so that it steams up and burns if possible. Yeah, so you get that patty jollof rice effect. But if you're just going for the regular, you want it to boil nicely, you just do this. Okay, but I'll be showing you. I'll be back. So we're just gonna leave that to cook for another 10 to say 10-15 minutes, but this rice usually boils really quick, so I'll be back in 10 minutes. So we're just gonna come check the rice real quick to make sure everything is the way it should be. Yep, it's boiling nicely. There's enough water, so we don't need to add anything. Just gonna leave that to boil. So next time we come back, it'll probably be ready. Okay. So we're back to check. Yeah, that seems to be progressing just the way we want it. So it's ready. Just gonna reduce the heat down to 3 from 6. The next thing I'm going to do is add the foil. And then cover it up again with the one we had previously and leave that for 2 minutes. Okay, time to check. Yes, the rice is ready.